What is up, my beautiful gemstones? Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, thanks for checking us out. My name is Gemma Jade, but today we are going to be discussing a 20-year haunting part 2, house number 333. Welcome back, my lovelies, and I hope you watched part 1 of this last week. If not, I'll leave it as the pinned comment down below so you can check that out, and after you watch that, come back to this one. I'm considering taking both parts of this video and combining them once they're done to make one longer video for anyone who doesn't want to have to skip around or watch a video in 2 parts. Some people don't like that, and as always, I am trying very, very hard, my very bestest to please everyone as best as I can. Anyway, we left off with William and Grace being woken up in the middle of the night to the sound of footsteps, heavy boot-sounding stomps coming from their living room downstairs. They both said later on that it sounded like more than one person was in the house. William had already texted his 2 roommates and made sure it wasn't them, and earlier in the night, Grace had seen the apparition of the same old woman so many others had seen throughout the years that William had lived in the home. Mrs. Tompkins is who he always believed it was. I stopped the story short just before William left the bedroom to go and see what or who was in his home, or otherwise what was causing all of the loud noises and loud stomping footsteps. Let's pick up right there and just jump right in. William left the bedroom and walked downstairs, taking a deep breath as he grabbed the door handle for the living room door, which is where he and Grace had pinpointed that the noises had been coming from. He said he sensed the buzz in the air before he heard or felt it. It was that strong and palpable. He realized right away that the plasma television was turned on, which was odd because he knew for a fact that he and Grace had turned it off before turning into their bedrooms to go to bed for the evening. He quickly went to the front and back doors, made sure they were both shut and locked up tight, which they were. William went back into the living room and turned off the TV, but having seen or heard nothing else, he decided to just go back to his bedroom and try to go back to sleep for the night. There really is nothing more you can do in this situation, in my opinion. So that's just what he did, and he told Grace what had happened, but that the footsteps had stopped as soon as he had gotten down there, and the only thing kind of out of sorts or out of place was that the TV was on. Although she was happy there weren't intruders in the home and they weren't going to be burgled, she was deeply disturbed by the footsteps and the fact that the TV had seemingly turned on all by itself. Neither William nor Grace obviously slept very much that night after that, and both of them hoped the paranormal and otherwise very strange activity would stop. William was still very fascinated by it, but Grace was terrified of it, and you know, she didn't want to have to deal with it anymore. It was very small, benign things to people like us. Some people have said to me, like, why would you cover a story that's so benign? You know, there's nothing really terrifying, or there's no demonic activity, nobody's being attacked or hurt. But you have to understand, that's just the way we think in this community. People outside of this community, it's terrifying to have any of this phenomena happening, and that's kind of where Grace stood. As far as the activity stopping, they had no such luck, and that would not be the last time they were woken up / startled awake in the middle of the night because of strange phenomenon and noises happening in the home. As of 2013, Alan and Brendan had both moved out, leaving William once again as the sole proprietor in house number 333. It was also right around this time that he and Grace would temporarily break up for a little while. William was still working at the car dealership as a salesman, but he had also opened a beauty shop and installed Grace as the manager of that place. He found himself now spending more of his time dealing with issues at the salon, which didn't help the tension and animosity brewing between him and Grace at that time. So they split. It would be temporary, but they didn't know that at the time. By the end of 2013, William had another roommate in the home, and she was a 26-year-old young woman named Sadie. He had met her through a mutual friend, and she'd been looking for a place to live, so he offered her one of the rental bedrooms in house number 333. Sadie had chosen the larger room in the back of the house, and William got some of his friends together to come over and have a sort of housewarming party or welcoming party for his new tenant. The night was perfectly normal and with nothing unusual happening until the early morning hours of the following day. At that time, William, Sadie, and one of William's friends named Seth were the only ones left at the party. Everyone else had gone home, and Seth was trying to leave, but he was drunk, and he couldn't seem to find any available taxicab services to take him all the way home, to come all the way out to that house, which was way out of the way, and bring him to his home. He asked William if it would be okay if he slept on the sofa in the living room until the morning when he would just take his car and leave. He couldn't drive how he was, and neither William nor Sadie cared if he stayed the night. William told Seth that he wanted to sleep late the following day as he had nothing planned, and he didn't want to wake up too early, so he would leave the keys for Seth, in order for Seth to lock the door behind him when he left. he would leave the key inside of the door. So all Seth had to do was go outside, turn it, and put it away. Basically, he just didn't want to be woken up. Seth agreed. They all went to bed for the night. At around 9 the next morning, William was startled awake out of his sleep when he heard Seth slam the front door. It was very, very loud. He was able to fall right back asleep, and when he woke up again, it was 11 a.m. He felt the hangover immediately, and he did not feel well. He stumbled his way into the bathroom, and as he did so, he happened to glance down the steps into the living room, where he saw that the front door was standing slightly open. He was immediately worried that someone had broken into the house, and he ran downstairs to see what was going on. Nothing seemed to be missing or messed up at first, and when he looked outside, he saw that his car was still there. He noticed something odd outside on the footpath leading from his car to the door, though, and he immediately ran upstairs to wake Sadie up. Her purse was lying in the middle of the footpath, and its contents had been scattered and strewn all around the lawn and all across the path. He told her to get up right away and go and check and make sure nothing was missing. Sadie's purse had cigarettes, cell phone, and some money inside of it, but all of that and everything else was still there when she went to retrieve the bag. So it may not have been in the bag, but it was all there. All of the contents, nothing missing. Both William and Sadie wondered why someone would have entered their house, taken only a woman's purse, but then only have taken it to have scattered the contents around the front walkway and to leave everything behind and take nothing. It was really bizarre. Sadie was very upset and angry, and William apologized profusely. I don't really know why he apologized, but I think he felt it was his fault, because when he'd heard Seth leave in the morning hours earlier, he thought like he should have gotten up and gone downstairs to make sure the door was locked. They were both still under the assumption that someone had broken into the home, perhaps some opportunist, and that whoever that was had decided to just vandalize the purse and leave. Like I always say, guys, our minds will convince ourselves of literally anything to not have to deal with the fact that the paranormal exists around us. They were still outside, and finally Sadie calmed down enough, with William still apologizing. They both went back inside the house. The moment they entered the house, they both saw knives sticking out of the wooden floorboards. There were 5 of them in total, and they were all very sharp. William later said that the knives were, quote, a good 2 inches deep into the floorboards each, end quote. Even more bizarre was the fact that the knives had been arranged according to size, and they were all evenly spaced apart from one another exactly. The act itself was very purposeful, and whoever had done it with intent, more than likely, to scare William and Sadie. William told Sadie to stay where she was in the living room, and he gently walked around the knives and went into the kitchen, where he was able to confirm that the knives had come from a knife block in there, a kitchen block. One of the kitchen drawers had been pulled open, and 2 of the cupboards were opened as well. William was irate at this point, and he immediately called Seth to yell at him and ask him what the hell he meant by trying to pull such a sick prank on him and Sadie. Seth seemingly had zero idea what William was talking about and said nothing was out of the ordinary when he left. The knives certainly weren't spaced out on the living room floor, and Sadie's purse hadn't been on the walkway then either. Seth also stressed the fact that he had gently closed the door on purpose and made sure it was closed and locked when he left, just as William had instructed him to do before they'd gone to sleep for the night. He was insistent. He said, it was not me. I didn't do, why would I do that, right? William apologized to Seth, realizing that it couldn't have been him and that the door slamming had been what had woken him up at 9 a.m. He believed Seth about closing the door and locking it behind him and knew it had not been him who had slammed that door. Up to this point, as I said last week, these were some of the most disturbing occurrences in house number 333. There wasn't anything that was really hurtful or harmful physically to people, but you got to think spiritually, mentally, and emotionally, this is kind of torment for someone outside of this community. After Sadie had been living with William for about 6 months, William came home one night from work to find that not only had she left without any warning or without ever mentioning it to him, but that she left most of her belongings behind. She'd also left owing him a couple of months' rent. He arranged for her family to come and pick up her stuff and found himself once again living alone in house number 333. Eventually, his friend Timmy, whom he known for around 10 years, moved in and took Sadie's old room. He moved in knowing all about some of the strange activity that had happened on the property, but he really didn't seem to care much about it at all, if he even believed it. Maybe he didn't believe it, or maybe he was just really desperate for a place to stay. Around this same time, William's brother Darren, who had continued visiting once a week for all those years, said that he and his wife Lisa were having some issues, and he moved in temporarily and took the smaller room for himself. All 3 men got along very well together and spent a lot of time with one another, watching TV and sports matches together and drinking beer. William and Darren also made a habit habit of telling Timmy about all of the odd and scary little things that had happened in the home throughout the years. However, it wouldn't take long for Timmy to find himself at the center of his own terrifying experiences with house number 333. One afternoon, Timmy came home early from work to find he was the only one in the house at the time because both Darren and William were still at work. Timmy rushed straight to the bathroom that day, and it was as he was sitting on the toilet and staring straight ahead that he would have his first frightful encounter all his own in the home. As he watched, stunned I'm sure, he saw the cord for the light, which hung down past the bathroom door. It was starting to pull away from the light itself as if being moved by some unseen force or hand. It then spun around in the air on its own a few times before it suddenly went crashing across the room and down on the ground. It had been like someone had flung it across the room, but no one was there. This is the lamp. Timmy was scared, and so he finished up doing his business in the bathroom as quickly as possible and made his way downstairs into the living room, where he waited the whole time for Darren and William to get home from work. As soon as they got home, he told them what had happened, and neither of them disbelieved him. They didn't doubt him at all. They knew he was telling the truth. Another scary incident occurred at the home just a couple of weeks later, this time while Timmy was away for the weekend. William drank some beers and ate some takeout in front of the TV while Darren prepared to go out for the night. He told William he wouldn't be back until late and not to wait up for him. Just before 4 in the morning, Darren came back through the front door of house number 333. Instead of going right to bed, he decided to go into the kitchen and grab one more beer. As he made his way toward the kitchen, he saw something move near the window. He turned in the direction of the movement he was seeing out of the corner of his eye, and when he did, he saw what he described as, quote, a bright white shape, end quote, moving around outside in the yard. He was now fully alert and awake due to his adrenaline pumping because he thought it was maybe someone wanting to break into the house and burgle or rob them. Whatever the figure was, it was moving closer and closer to the window. Darren continued to watch the shape, also moving closer to the window very slowly himself. He got as close to the window as he could bear to, and that's when the shape came into full focus, and he could see exactly what it was he was dealing with. He described what he was looking at as, quote, a ghostly apparition in the form of an elderly lady floating towards the window with an otherworldly grace, end quote. He'd heard William talk about and describe Mrs. Tompkins a few times and was sure that the figure he was looking at was in fact her ghost or spirit. Darren later said he knew that she was not only looking through the window at him, but that she was conscious and knew he was there, and that he was aware of and could see her. Like she knew that he could see her. After the two just stared at one another for a moment or two, the ghostly apparition turned once again and slowly walked off into the darkness of the night through the wall of the next door neighbor's house. And that's something I was wondering about this case, and I was never able to find any additional information, particularly about the area or the neighbors. I was wondering, were the neighbors haunted as well? And was this a property thing? Was there a portal somewhere on the property that allowed ghosts and spirits and other entities from other realms and dimensions to easily pass back and forth? Or was this just Mrs. Tompkins? I do get a little more information. We'll get a little bit more into that later on, but definitely nowhere near as much as I would have liked to have had when researching this case. Like, I want to know, were the neighbors haunted because Mrs. Tompkins just walked right into their house through the wall? As Darren watched. By the time the apparition walked away, Darren was crouched down almost underneath the kitchen table and absolutely paralyzed with fear. He was later unsure how long he'd stayed in that position, but eventually he summoned up the courage to reach into his pocket for his cell phone and called his brother William. William was very aggravated from the moment he answered the call because it was the middle of the night and Darren had woken him up. Darren didn't care and ignored his brother's grumblings, interrupting his rant and telling him, quote, come downstairs, quick, end quote. William reluctantly got up and made his way downstairs and into the kitchen, fully expecting that his brother was merely drunk and trying to pull some sort of ill-conceived and poorly timed joke on him. However, as soon as he saw that his brother was crouched in fear underneath the table, he became concerned and he was no longer angry. He got Darren calmed down enough to tell him exactly what had just happened to him, and after he did so, both brothers agreed that the apparition he had seen was that of Mrs. Tompkins. It seems as though that event was the catalyst to something greater, because from that moment forward, the paranormal activity and strange happenings in the home increased not only in intensity, but in frequency as well. At this time, William and Grace got back together, and Grace once again started to spend a lot of time at number 333, and she witnessed a lot of what went on. One night, Grace and William were in bed, and one of their friends, a man named Ian, was spending the night and sleeping on the living room sofa. Suddenly, William and Grace heard what sounded like footsteps walking along the footpath in the backyard. They listened intently as the footsteps, which were coming right towards the house, made their way to the front door and then stopped. As they listened to hear what would happen next, they were shocked when they heard a woman's voice whisper, quote, "Let's go around the back," end quote. William got up and walked over to the window that overlooked that area of the house, but he couldn't see anyone or anything out there. He went downstairs to try and see if he can get a better look from those windows, or possibly if he could go outside and further investigate whatever was going on. He had to walk through the living room to get to the window he needed to look out of, and when he did, he noticed that his friend Ian was wide awake and sitting up on the couch, pinned still and seemingly frozen in fear, pale as a ghost, with a terrified look on his face. Ian whispered, "Who was that?" William told him the truth, that he had no idea, and both men quickly went over what they'd each heard. Ian had heard the same exact things William and Grace had heard from their bedroom. No one in house number 333 slept for the rest of the night, and William never was able to find anyone outside or any evidence that anyone had ever been there in the first place, let alone talking and whispering at the front door. A few months later, another of William's friends, this time a man named Bob, was spending the night and sleeping on the couch. Bob later said that he jumped up in the middle of the night, startled awake but unaware of what had startled him. He sat there for a moment, trying to gather himself and wake up a bit, when all of a sudden the kitchen door swung open. Bob nervously got up off the couch and walked toward the kitchen to see what was going on, but no one was there, and he could see no possible way for the door to have opened on its own. He was scared, and so he didn't investigate for more than a minute or two before almost running back to the living room and jumping back on the couch to cuddle up. As he sat there thinking of what to do next, the TV suddenly burst on all by itself, loud as can be, and without anyone touching it or the remote control. He scrambled to try and find the remote to try and turn it off so it didn't disturb William and Grace, but he could not find it anywhere. About 2 minutes later, while Bob was still panicking and looking for it, the TV shut off on its own again, and he was left once again in the darkness and silence of the living room in house number 333. In 2015, so about 2 years, a year and a half later, William was once again living in number 333 by himself. Timmy had moved out, and Darren went back to live at his house with his wife and family. However, as he and Grace got closer and more connected, she started spending more and more time at the house with him. On Christmas of 2015, Grace found herself alone at the house because William had gone out to meet some friends for a holiday celebratory drink. Grace said she spent most of the day watching her favorite Disney films, and after that, at around 9:30 that night, she got up off the couch and made her way into the bathroom. On her way to the bathroom, she passed through the kitchen, and when she did, she got the shock of her life. She saw, standing there outside of the kitchen window, that same window Darren had seen something outside of that night, years earlier. An elderly woman, almost glowing white, was standing in the yard and looking directly at her, once again aware that Grace was there and Grace could see her. The figure stood there for only a moment or less and then faded away, but Grace knew and was sure of what she had seen. These types of encounters happened all of the time after that, but Grace was seemingly undeterred by them because in early 2017, she moved in with William into house number 333. With Grace and her son Elliot moving in, they wanted to try to turn the home from a 3-bedroom into something more for a family, and they quickly began renovations, adding an extension off the back of the house. Now, anyone that's been with me for a while or that's familiar in this community making the rounds, you'll know that renovations are one of the main things that will even make an old and inactive house come to life, stirring the energy around and spirits that might be disturbed by these kinds of things springing back to life, so to speak. However, I don't think Will and Grace here knew that. As the renovations went on, the strange activity in the home increased and increased in intensity. It seemed as though the resident spirits in house number 333 were very displeased with the changes that were being made to the home, or that there were being changes made at all. Strange and very loud footsteps were the main thing everyone was hearing in the house at that time, but with them also came the appearance of several shadow figures who appeared so much that sightings of them were described as, quote, almost commonplace, end quote, by the family. The renovations took almost 2 years, but by 2019, they were completely done. The intense activity continued to increase even after the renovations were completed, and Elliot finally witnessed something on his own for the first time at this point in time. One day, while William and Grace were sitting on the couch in the living room watching TV, Elliot came bursting into the room and, seemingly very annoyed, asked them, "Why do you keep calling my name?" The adults were confused and assured him that they'd done no such thing and that they'd simply been watching the television. Elliot was very irritated. I think he was a teenager or a preteen at this point, and he thought they were playing some sort of weird parent prank on him or something. So he went back to his room after asking them to please knock it off. About a half hour later, he returned to the living room once again, accusing them of incessantly calling his name. And William and his mother, Elliot's mother, both insisted they hadn't called him. They didn't know what he was talking about. In the back of his mind, William worried that whatever was lurking in the shadows in house number 333 had turned its attention to Elliot. Not only that, but it seemingly enjoyed making him angry and purposefully toying with him. Despite all of this, a few months into 2019, William and Grace finally married. The footsteps constantly heard around the property then started to always be accompanied by loud thuds or bangs, and it all seemed to have been coming from inside of the walls now. After a while, William had the idea to use the thumping sounds as a way to try and communicate with whatever had been haunting the home for all those years. One night, after hearing the strange sounds once again, William asked out loud if there was anyone there and said if there was, then they should knock twice on the wall. Less than a minute later, 2 loud knocks came from the wall, and this is finally, like, how many years later? Almost 2 decades or 2 decades later, accepted that there was at least one otherworldly entity and presence in his home. On 2 separate occasions during the summer of 2022, William called in a team of paranormal investigators to investigate and look into the property, and he goes into great detail about what they found in his book. I'm not going to get into too much of that detail here. One of the things that was confirmed, though, with these investigations was that there was more than one presence in the home, but something much more interesting was uncovered as well, and it's something I've become very familiar with in my 42 years of being a sensitive with unique abilities. The property on which the house sat was an interdimensional portal, a gateway, which allows spirits from all different worlds and realms to pass through from their realm to ours and back again. I use the words spirits here lightly just to place a word that will give you all a better understanding of what I'm talking about. Really, it was all different types of entities. Really, it's beings that we perceive as spirits, but that we don't really know what a lot of them are or anything about where they come from. These portals, when they pop up, aren't only open to the spirits that usually haunt the house either. They're open to any and all spirits and entities that should happen to come across it and choose to wander through it. It's a gateway. These portals and gateways exist everywhere all over the world, and following multiple investigations into the property of house number 333, it was confirmed that there was a huge portal there, and that's how the entities were traveling to and from our realm and their realm. Sorry. I'm going to allow William to have the final words here, as I've discussed gateways, portals, liminal realms, etc. here on this channel a multitude of times, and the creatures that travel throughout and dwell within them. Literally more times than I can count, I've talked about this. After all those years spent and all of the terrifying and often benign but still very scary to someone who doesn't know any better and isn't used to it happenings in the house number 333, William said in his book, quote, "After all this, I still call myself a skeptic with an open mind. I've seen and heard too much. Maybe one day Mrs. Tompkins will appear before me and fully change my mind." End quote. Because remember, William is like one of the only people who's never seen her. He's just the one who researched into who it could be. If you think about it, the first time she was seen, the guy Craig saw her looking out of the window at them when they were in the car before he even moved in. He didn't see anybody. When the guy Greg saw the old woman sitting in a non-existent rocking chair by the Christmas tree at the Christmas party a few months after he moved in, he didn't see it. When Grace saw the entity in the window, Darren saw the entity in the window. He never saw her. He's waiting for her kind of to come and prove it even more to him. Though after all of this, I don't know what more proof he would need. I've left out so many of the events William and his friends and family went through in this house in order to save time. But if you want the full story straight from the source, please check out William C. Graves' book called The Lady in the Bay Window, A True Story of a Haunted Sheffield Home. that's all I have for you today, guys. Please give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed the content. If you enjoyed hanging out with me, spread the love by sharing this video. Please, please, please subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure your notification bell is turned on and click to all so that you're notified every time I do anything short, video upload, live stream, etc. Please check out the description box for important links, ways to donate to the channel, PayPal, Cash App, my Amazon wish list gift link. Donations are how I get paid right now. So if you appreciate what I'm doing and you'd like to have me get paid for my work, I hate saying it like that, but it's so true. Please donate to my PayPal or Cash App. A lot of y'all ask me how you can send me a little gift here and there. My Amazon wish list gift link. There's thousands of things on there, guys. There's even like cases of water, right? I'm making it super simple for y'all to do something to help me or just to do something nice for me, because so many of you ask, right? So instead of giving my address out, that's what the Amazon wish list gift link is for. Also, links to all 14 of my books on Kindle, paperback, and Audible. But if you go to Amazon and type in Gemma Jade Books, you'll find the links to all of my books, including my newest book, which you guys made a bestseller. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Encounters with Evil, Volume 2. So I have Missing the Fae Theory, Encounters with Evil, Volume 1, 101 True and Terrifying Stories. Shadow Entities, Sleep Paralysis, and Beyond, Danger at Your Door, Encounters with Black-Eyed Kids. Midnight Visitors, a companion encounter book for the Danger at Your Door book. Campfire Stories, which are listener encounters that took place in the woods, volumes 1, 2, and 3. Gone, Mysterious Disappearances, volumes 1 through 5. And then Encounters with Evil, volume 2, which there are 51 stories, not 101. And that's because there are 2 or 3 times as long as the ones in the original book. If you like an autographed copy of any of my books, contact me before you make the purchase. If you want to have a personal intuitive oracle reading from me, either remotely, general, where you don't have to be there, you just have to give me your info and pay, and I'll send you a private link that only you and I can see once the reading is done. Or if you want to do a video call with me, hour to an hour and a half, while you ask questions while I pull cards, or just to talk about something supernatural, paranormal you're going through that maybe I can examine and or diagnose even and help you with. I've done that for many, many people. I need to start putting some reviews in my description box. For any and all correspondence at all, please email me at GemmaJadeParanormal@gmail.com. Also, I'm on Snapchat a little bit, X a little bit. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok under the name either Gemma Jade or GemmaJadeYT. Please go and check out all of my social medias. I really, really would appreciate the support. I'm trying to branch out. You can't become monetized on TikTok unless you have 10,000 followers. And right now I only have like 1,200 and something. So guys, please head on over there. I know a lot of y'all don't like TikTok. Just download it to follow me, right? I mean, I would do it for you guys. Kind to each other, guys. It doesn't cost anything. Be kind to yourselves and never accept anything less than others being kind to you. If nobody told you today, you're amazing. You got this. Manifest the best for yourself. You can make your dreams come true. Just don't accept any negative energy on you. Don't listen to the negative talk, self-talk, or what others are saying. I believe in you. I got your back. Always go in grace. Smile at a stranger. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.